Hello, my name is Pushpanandan. In this video, I will read the Hindu editorial of 15th April 2026 and then I will explain it. I have the editorial in my phone. I will read it one first, then I will explain it. Reservation rules on women's quota and delimitation. Women's empowerment is an excuse to undermine federal equity. In a parliament sitting converted from April 16, Union government is seeking to advance women's empowerment, but as part of a wider legislative package. The Constitution 131st Amendment Bill 2026 and a companion delimitation bill. The stated rationale is the operational of the Nari Shakti Bandhan Adhinayam, the 106th Amendment of 2023, which reserves one-third of Lok Sabha and Assembly seats for women, but was tied to a post-census delimitation. The government's instance on bundling women's reservation with delimitation suggests that the former is being used as a political cover for the latter. A sweeping reallocation of Lok Sabha seats that would reshape the federal composition of parliament to the advantage of states where the Bharatiya Janata Party enjoys electoral dominance and at the expense of states where it has been historically weak. When India's decennial census was delayed for more than 5 years without a definitive or rational explanations from the BJP-led union government, the political logic was not hard to discern. The 2021 census was first postponed citing COVID-19, but no reason was offered for the successive deferral that followed, until it was quietly announced that the exercise would be carried out in 2026-27. Under the constitution, the freeze on internal state distribution of Lok Sabha seats pegged to the 1971 census was set to expire only after the first census conducted after the year 2026 was published. This meant that in the normal course, delimitation would have been based on the 2031 census. By delaying the census to 2026-27, the government ensured that the delimitation exercise could be initiated on its preferred timeline, using the 2026-27 census rather than the one conducted in 2031. Now, perhaps realizing that any delimitation exercise would take years to conclude after the 2026-27 census, and therefore not be ready even for the 2029 Lok Sabha election, the government appears to be in a tearing hurry to proceed with delimitation on the basis of the last completed census, that of 2011. The 31st Amendment Bill amends Article 55, 81, 82, 170, 330, 332 and 334A of the Constitution. Its most consequential changes are the following. First, it raises the ceiling of Lok Sabha membership from 530 elected members from states and 20 from union territories to 815 and 35 respectively, to a potential house of 850. Second, it replaces the existing constitutional definition of population, which specifies the 1971 census of seat allocation and the 2001 census for boundary demarcation, with an open-ended formulation. Population shall mean the census as parliamentary may by law determine. The choice of which census to use is no longer left to the Constitution but will depend on ordinary legislation, changeable by simple majority. Third, it deletes the third proviso to Article 82 and 170 entirely, a freeze on seat allocation that has been in place since the 42nd Amendment of 1976 and extended by the 84th Amendment of 2001. guaranteed states that had stabilized their populations that they would not lose parliamentary seats as a consequence. This safeguard is now removed. Member of the Union Cabinet, including Home Minister Amit Shah and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, had assured the country that the existing proportions of seats held by each state will be maintained through a uniform increase. But this assurance finds no place in the constitutional amendment. Article 81 2A retained unchanged, mandates that the ratio between seats and population shall be same for all states so far as practicable, which is a population proportionality requirement and does not preserve existing proportions. Based on 2011 census data, a purely population proportional allocation to a 850 seat house would produce sharply unequal increase across region. The Hindi heartland states Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Delhi, which currently hold 207 of 543 seats, would secure 366, a 77% increase, with their share rising from 38.1% to 43.1%. The southern states Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Kerala and Puducherry, with 132 seats now, would receive only 176, a 33% increase, while their share would drop from 24.3% to 20.7%. The eastern states would slip from 14.4% to 13.7%. The northeast from 4.4% to 3.8%. The west and the northern non-Hindi states would remain roughly unchanged. States that spent decades building their health infrastructure, educational access and women's agency that brought fertility down now face a reduction in their share of democratic power, while states that lagged on these indicators stand to gain the most seats. The already weakened fiscal federalism would now be compounded by diminished political representation for socio-economic advanced states. That this legislation is being rushed through with barely any time for public debate. Just days before voters in two crucial states go to the polls makes the timing even more suspect. There is no reason why women's reservation cannot be implemented within the existing 543 seats Lok Sabha by designating constituencies for women on a rotational basis, an approach the opposition had pressed for after the passage of the 106th Amendment. MPs from states that stand to lose proportional representation in the Lok Sabha must resist the bulldozering of legislation on issues that strikes at the federal foundation of the Indian Union. The consequences of letting these amendments pass are too grave to contemplate. Okay, this was the content of the editorial. Now I will say few points like which were written in the editorials, like what is what, and then I will explain the editorial. First, the title there was ruse. Ruse means an action intended to deceive someone or trick. That is the definition of ruse. Like federal. What federal means? Having or related to a system of a government which serves with several states form a unity but remain independent in internal affairs. Which means like when the British Raj left India, like when we got independence. So India was of several states. There were princely states and there were states, many provinces. So we combined all the princely states and states to form the Indian Union, which India is a federal republic. The definition of the preamble in the constitution, in which India is a republic too. Okay, republic means people of India only will be the leader, that's the president, and it has federal properties also. Nowhere in the constitution it is written like India is a federal uh, it's a federal country to my knowledge. Okay, so but we are following a federal government, and it is said like India is a quasi-federal, means it is not totally federal, it is not totally centralized, but it is of quasi-federal. Certain federal properties are also there, centralized power is also there. Okay, then the Constitution's 131st Amendment Bill of 2023 circulated for the special session starting April 16. See, now the debate is now the editorial is about the 131st Amendment Bill. Here, there are two things are going to happen in this amendment. One is increasing the quota for women to 33%. At the same time, to make the delimitation activity. What is delimitation activity? Say, at present in Lok Sabha, see, in Parliament, three persons are important in Parliament. One is the President. President is the head of the Parliament. Then the Lok Sabha. Then the Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha is about the say Rajya Sabha is Council of States. Lok Sabha is of people. Okay. So Lok Sabha has more power than the Rajya Sabha. And MPs, a member of parliaments, will be in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and there is state legislative assembly where MLAs will be there, member of legislative assemblies. In this 131st amendment, they are increasing the 33%, and in addition to that, they are bringing the delimitation activity also. Yeah. So what is the delimitation activity? At present, in our Lok Sabha, there are 300 and 1 minute. Let me get the count properly. Okay. At present there are 543 seats in our Lok Sabha. So after the delimitation means, say, in the year 1971, if I am not wrong. It was mentioned in the editorial. Okay, let me say the story. It is taking time if I read and see. See, in the year 1971, cross-check once, there was India had a particular population for each and every state, and in our parliament, the seats are allocated for each state based on the population, based on the 1971 census. At 1971, say that in state A, state B, state C, there were X, Y, Z population. Based on that proportion, out of that 543 seats, the seats were segregated for each and every state. For state A, X number of seat. For state B, Y number of seat. For state C, Z number of seat. Okay, and India initiated an activity to curb the population. At the time, a population was increasing rapidly. Many people were having several child. So population was increasing, and government took an action. Started an initiative not to increase population that much, and all the state governments and union territory governments were asked to act upon it, and they were working upon it. And it was said like, your proportion in the parliament will not affect by reducing it, because we are going to put a curb to the 1971 population until 2001, and until a particular period actually they said. Then in the 2001 they extended that amendment until 2026 census. It will be the same. Okay, and until the year 2026, whatever census has happened before, until then it will be the same. Now it is about that only. Now what is happening is, in that 131st amendment bill, they are bringing that delimitation activity also along with the reservation for women's seat. And it is the editorial has spoken about the 106 amendment, which is the Nari Shakti Vandanam Abhinayam. This is the one which was passed for the 33% of seats for women's reservation. Okay, and in the editorial there was a sentence, latter first was done, then later it will be like that. LATTER, which means the second one out of two. Okay. Then decennial. What is decennial means? Occurring every 10 years. Census is the activity which will occur every 10 years. The last one happened in 2011. Before that, it would have happened in 2001. Like that, it will go back trace. Okay. Then you should know the difference between quiet and quiet, which is QUIET versus QUITE. QUIET means being silent, and QUITE means completely or absolute. Okay. And what is the difference between ordinary legislation bill and constitution bill? Constitution amendment bill means any bill which is passed to change the properties of the constitution. That is constitution amendment bill. Ordinary bill is normal day-to-day activities bill which are passed. That is ordinary bill. And each has its own majority for it to be passed. For example, ordinary bills requires more than 50% of the member present and voting. Say that out of that 543 member in the Lok Sabha, 500 are present. In that, at least more than 250 should vote for the bill to pass. That is ordinary bill. Okay. Present, because it is present and voting. Ordinary bill, simple majority in parliament is a voting requirement where more than 50% of the member present and voting supports a bill. Okay. And what is constitution amendment bill? Constitution amendments bill requires a special majority where 2/3 of the persons present and voting, and the majority should be more than 50% of the total capacity of the parliament seat. Okay. This is the thing. Now I will explain what is said in the editorial. There are 6 paragraphs. Okay. The first one is about where they are bringing that 131st Amendment bill in addition, where it has the delimitation also, along with the women reservation seat. And they explained that 106 was the Nari Shakti bill, which was brought for the reservation of women in the parliament. And when India's decennial census was delayed, they are saying like India's census was delayed. See, last census happened in 2011. The next should have been happened in 2021. But at that time we were having COVID, because of which we were not able to conduct the census, and it has been postponed for 5 years from 2001. That's what it has been mentioned here. Yeah, it is mentioned that it was postponed due to COVID-19, but no reason was offered for successive deferrals that followed until quite announced that exercise will be carried out in 2026-27. Okay. And now perhaps now it has been now it is going to happen now. Say now in this paragraph they are saying like the census, the 131st Amendment bill will be affecting this part of this article of the Constitution, which is Article 51, 80, 55. Sorry, not 51. Article 55, 81, 82, 170, 330, 332, and 334 of the Constitution. The first one is raising the seal of the Lok Sabha membership, which is from 530 to the 850. From 530 elected members from the state and 20 from the union territory will be like, instead of 530 for the state, it will become 815 for the state. 20 instead of 20 for the union territories, it will become 35. Totally, it will raise to 850. Second is, it replaces the definition of population. See, delimitation is based on population, right? And there should be a definition of population. So that is mentioned in the Constitution, and they are changed, and it has been it is in this 131st Amendment they are changing the definition of Constitution. Definition of population in the Constitution, which specifies the 1971 census for seat allocation. Okay. And it is mentioned like population shall mean the census as Parliament may by law determine. Only Parliament has the law to define what is population. Okay, so they are doing that. And third, it deletes the provision of Article 82 and 170 entirely, which is the freeze of the seat. Like before in 1971, after that the population control was happening. At the time, states and union territories said that the seat allocation will be freezed. Now that is being removed. Okay. and it has been mentioned by our ministers that it has been assured by our ministers that the existing proportion of seats held by each state will be maintained through uniform increase, but it is not mentioned in the amendment. That is what mentioned in this editorial. Okay, and here they are mentioning that this delimitation activity will give an advantage to the Hindi heartland states, where in India there are several states and union territory. Each states have different languages, where people speak different languages, and there are certain states where common languages is spoken, like Hindi is spoken there. In southern part there will be Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, okay, and Marathi in Maharashtra, and each every state has its own regional language, and so certain states, people from certain states speak Hindi, like many people from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, and Delhi speak Hindi. So they mentioned it as Hindi heartland. Okay, so for here there is a proportional increase of the seats when compared to the southern part of the Indian states. Okay, and that's what mentioned here. So they are saying that there is an increase in 77% in the Hindi heartland seats, like proportionately the seats is being increased, and in the southern part of India states there is only 33% of the increase, and overall combined for the share of the southern part of the Indian states, it is decreasing from 24.3% to 20.7%. That is what they are mentioned here. And in the eastern states, there is a slip from 14.4% to 13.7%. They are saying that there is a decrease here. So this is what the editorial is explaining here about the 31st Amendment Act. So for the 15th April 2026, the Hindu has published only one editorial, which is about the 131st Amendment of the Constitution. Thank you.